You sure you want to do this, Scorpion?
You think I'm Scorpion? I'm much worse.
We're going to need America.
There is a chalkboard in Bruce Banner's university classroom, and on that chalkboard is a set of equations that most of the audience is going to read as academic flavor. Physicist teaching physics, contextual detail moving on. But if you know what lattice quantum chromodynamics actually is, if you understand what converting continuous spacetime into a discrete three-dimensional grid means theoretically, you are going to stop in that moment and realize that Banner is not just teaching a class. He is drawing the mathematical blueprint for Battleworld on a university chalkboard in New York City. And nobody in that classroom understands what they are looking at. Spider-Man Brand New Day was sold as a return-to-basics street-level story. Peter Parker, New York City, loneliness and identity, and the specific difficulty of being extraordinary in a world that has forgotten your name. And it is all of those things. It is also, quietly, meticulously, one of the most carefully constructed pieces of Avengers Doomsday setup the MCU has ever buried inside a solo film. The quantum equations, the Yelena dynamic, Doctor Strange's total absence from a mystical crisis in the city he is supposed to protect, Jean Grey existing natively in Earth 616, and a post-credit scene on a smartphone app that is not tracking Spider-Man in New York at all. Let's go through every hidden thread, because once you see the full picture of what Brand New Day was building underneath its surface story, you are going to look at this film completely differently. Start with Yelena, because her presence in this film is doing two jobs simultaneously, and most people only tracked one of them. On the surface, she is comic relief, a high-level operative conducting superhero briefings in a local spa, rather than in the gleaming renovated Avengers Tower, visible on the New York skyline. The comedic read is that she is eccentric and refreshingly unimpressed by the mythology of her own role. That reading is correct, and it is also incomplete. Yelena avoids Avengers Tower because the tower does not feel safe to her. The team she is running is operating under fending and leverage provided by Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, and that relationship is toxic in a very specific way. Val is constantly maneuvering behind the scenes to regain absolute control of the organization. Avengers Tower is not a sanctuary for Yelena. It is a space where she has to watch her back against her own infrastructure every single time she enters. The spa is neutral ground. She controls the space. Nobody who works for Val has ambient authority there. This sits alongside Sam Wilson's active refusal to align himself or his faction with an Avengers team bankrolled by corrupt figures and led by people like Yelena, former assassins, morally compromised operatives, people who do not have the institutional legitimacy Sam believes the Avengers name requires. Sam's Captain America and Yelena's new Avengers are not allies in Brand New Day. They are two different understandings of what it means to be Earth's protectors, existing in the same city with genuine friction between them. When Yelena calls Peter's street-level work small potatoes, she is not diminishing him. She is processing her own discomfort. Peter Parker is doing the thing she cannot. Pure, uncompromised heroism, motivated by love for the community rather than political leverage and dirty funding. His small potatoes are cleaner than anything Yelena is currently holding, and she knows it. The line lands differently once you understand she is as uncomfortable with the comparison as Peter is with the dismissal. The doomsday implication of all this is the fracture it creates going into the cosmic crisis. When Doctor Doom arrives and Earth needs a unified response, the heroes are not unified. They are divided between Sam's ideological Avengers, Yelena's compromised new Avengers, and Peter's street-level operation that nobody is quite treating as part of the larger structure. Doom does not need to divide and conquer. The division already exists. He just has to apply pressure. Now let's go back to the chalkboard. Banner's lecture on lattice quantum chromodynamics is not random academic selection. In real-world theoretical physics and computer science, lattice quantum calculations convert continuous spacetime into a discrete three-dimensional digital grid, the mathematical equivalent of mapping an infinite continuum onto a chessboard with finite squares. You are taking something that exists as a continuous flowing reality and restructuring it as a navigable, computable matrix. That is Battleworld, not metaphorically. Dr. Doom's patchwork planet, assembled from the remnants of destroyed universes, is, at its structural core, exactly what Banner is describing on that chalkboard. Reality reorganized into discrete domains, continuous space-time converted into a grid of sovereign territories, each one governed by its own rules while belonging to a larger architecture controlled by a single authority. Reed Richards is doing similar math on Earth 828. Banner is doing it on Earth 616 without knowing that is what he is doing. And Doom is doing it in practice, while both scientists are still in the theoretical phase. The news report calling Banner's arrest a psychiatric evaluation is the cover story, and it is an obvious one for the same reasons discussed elsewhere. A standard psychiatric ward cannot hold an uninhibited Bruce Banner. The more probable destination is a covert containment facility operated by Val's apparatus, or figures like William Metzger. The kind of off-the-books location where enhanced individuals and mutants can be isolated outside the legal framework that would allow allies to intervene. The interesting Doomsday question is who has access to that facility when the cosmic crisis arrives? Could Doom free a Hulk to deploy as an enforcer? Is there a version of this story where Banner in long-term Savage Hulk isolation becomes Maestro, the dark future Hulk of the comics, who rules through brutal dominance rather than partnership? Or does the Raft, or wherever he ends up, become a preserved fragment of Battleworld, and Banner simply adapts to whatever environment Doom's constructed reality produces around him? Doctor Strange's absence is the missing piece that requires the most inference, but also the most confidence once you understand the timeline. Brand New Day features mind-hopping anomalies, possession-adjacent occurrences, and a psionic threat operating in the middle of New York City. Strange's Sanctum Sanctorum is physically in that city. He knows Spider-Man as a fighter, even as Strange's memory of Peter Parker specifically was wiped by his own spell. The logical move in any previous MCU film would be for Peter to try the Sanctum. He does not try, because the Sanctum is empty. The Multiverse of Madness post-credits scene shows Strange leaving with Clea to address a multiversal incursion. That departure is the last time anyone on Earth 616 has seen the Sorcerer Supreme operating on home soil. He has been off-world for years by the time Brand New Day takes place, working in the dimensional rift between realities alongside Clea and whatever high-level mystic forces are available to them. His absence from the NYC crisis is not a narrative oversight. It is the film confirming that Strange has been gone long enough that Peter does not even consider trying the door. The Sanctum is dark. Its master is somewhere the Bifrost cannot reach, and the web shooters definitely cannot. The Doomsday implication is that Strange re-emerges at the cosmic crisis point, possibly having spent years working alongside figures who have knowledge of Doom's methods, possibly having encountered the incursion mechanics that Doom is exploiting, possibly having made choices in the rift that put him at moral odds with the heroes he is theoretically allied with. The Hickman Comics version of Strange in this period is a man who has done secret and terrible things believing they were necessary. That trajectory is available to the MCU. Jean Grey existing natively in Earth 616 rather than arriving as a variant from another universe is the thread that reshapes the entire mutant emergence story retroactively. And the mechanism that makes it possible is Loki sitting at the center of time. When Loki replaced the rigid sacred timeline with a freely flowing multiversal tree at the end of his own series, that change does not operate linearly. It operates across all temporal lines simultaneously. The old sacred timeline had the TVA pruning divergences, which in practical terms meant that mutant genetics, which would have produced significant divergences from the baseline human evolutionary path, were being systematically suppressed. Loki's multiversal tree removes that suppression across all time. Reality is quietly reshaped so that mutant genetics have always been developing within Earth 616. Jean Grey did not arrive from another dimension. She was always here. The universe just needed to stop deleting the evidence. This matters enormously for Secret Wars, because the X-Men being native to Earth 616 rather than being multiversal visitors changes what they lose if Battleworld replaces their reality. They are not guests who can return home when the crisis is resolved. Earth 616 is home. This is everything they have. The post-credits scene. Ned's app detecting Spider-Man in deep space, the camera drifting away from Earth and through glitching iridescent barriers that mirror multiversal rift boundaries. Two readings exist, and they are not mutually exclusive. The first reading is that the app is detecting an alternate Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire's Peter 2, arriving aboard or alongside the Fantastic Four's vessel as multiversal craft begin moving between dimensions ahead of the incursion collapse. The second reading is that Earth 616 Peter Parker himself has been pulled into an off-world or alternate reality mission before or during the Doomsday events, recruited by Yelena and Reed Richards for exactly the kind of operation that requires someone agile, trusted, and currently operating off the main Avengers grid. The most interesting version of the post-credits scene is one where both readings are simultaneously correct. There are two signals. One of them is Peter in Battleworld's version of Queens, his location reading as unknown because the Earth it belongs to is no longer the Earth 616 the app was built on. One of them is a legacy Peter operating in space, detected by the same app because the software is not discriminating between variants of the same person. Ned built a very good Spider-Man detector. He built it a little too well for the multiverse. What Brand New Day accomplished beneath its street-level surface is something genuinely impressive from a structural filmmaking standpoint. The quantum equations on a chalkboard function as Doom's architectural blueprint explained in a university setting. The Yelena dynamic maps the hero community fractures that Doom will exploit. Strange's absence confirms the multiversal timeline for the cosmic crisis. Jean Grey's native 616 existence proves Loki's retroactive rewrites are already active. And the post-credit scene confirms that the transition from street-level story to cosmic war has already begun. Registered on Ned Leeds' phone as a location that doesn't exist in any database Earth currently has. The dominoes were falling the entire time. The chalkboard told you where they were going. Most of the audience looked at it and saw a physics lecture. So here's what I want from you. The banner chalkboard detail does knowing that it is specifically lattice quantum chromodynamics change how you read that scene? Or does the connection to Battleworld feel like a stretch you are not fully buying? And the Yelena small potatoes line, does that land differently now that you know what she is actually uncomfortable about? Or do you think the film intended it purely as comedy? Drop everything in the comments because this film has more in it than a single viewing reveals, and I want to be pulling threads with you.